So let me begin by saying thank you to Peshawari ji for actually doing half my job and saying what I had intended to by starting saying that merchandisers are the backbone, merchandisers are the face of the company. And, he so beautifully put it by saying that a merchandiser is like a mother and she or he actually holds the order and knows it the best. So when I was actually asked to prepare this presentation, though we are working on this project with OGTC very closely, are you all reading it straight or the other way around? Only lunch, no drinks right now, only lunch, no? It's supposed to be straight. Okay. So when I was asked to speak about the SOPs, I was thinking of how should I start by kind of saying the importance of SOPs. And I actually thought that all of us have SOPs. We perform procedures every day in our daily routine lives. If you come to think of it, it's inbuilt, right? We get up, we do certain things, we go to office. We have certain standards, we have certain procedures. They are standards, but different to everybody. So that's what SOPs are about. So what is the presentation going to be about? Any guesses? I was asking you, were you reading it the other way around? Everybody said. Yeah, of course, yes, standard operating procedures. But what I've done is I've broken it down into two segments. The change that is happening around us and the new skill sets that are required for us to succeed in this new age, right? Even before I start with the change, I just want to wake you up with that nice lunch that we have had, and I'll put on a video. What I'm trying to say is that we just need to kind of get up and adapt to these changes that are happening around us. These are transformations that we need to start looking into as merchants. We have certain new peripheries happening in the world now. We've all heard of these words: fast fashion, quick response, process optimizations, flexibility, shorter lead times, right? But the thing is, are we actually adapting them right now to 100%? In the true sense of it? we saw the video, right? I was actually amazed when I was clicking futuristic things on YouTube, and I got a certain videos on the risk of being repetitive. Some of my friends in my training sessions have seen this, and I realized that half of the things are already happening. All of us have smartphones. We are doing so many things out of this also. So it's actually not very futuristic, and it's not like 2025. These peripheries are mentioned because we are actually not, taking into the 100% adaptation. Just look at the pivotal role of the retail sector, which is going to play a major role on how merchandising will function and why the procedures need to be addressed to. A quick look at the three scenarios that have been projected. Contribution of almost a 50% from the apparel sector out of the total volume given for apparel and textile. That's like a 7,088 million USD out of the complete figure given. It is expected to grow annually. Can I step down? It's okay. Okay. It's expected to grow annually at a 13 to 15%. That's good news for all of us. Better news. We need to actually, that transformation that I've been talking about. We are looking at a fourfold increase, but we need transformation to attain this fourfold increase of a huge whooping figure of 200 billion by 2025. That's the huge market we've been talking of. I mean, some of the eminent speakers yesterday were talking about this. We've heard that India is a big market. We've heard, but I mean, look at the figures, right? Having looked at those figures, I don't say they're 100% true, but our commitment will make them true. It's the unpredictability which is extraordinary here. Nobody has a clue what's the world going to be, but those are figures which are based on facts, certain forecasts. So this is what we are talking about today. What is the solution that we are looking at? We all realize this solution, right? We need a self-analysis. We are talking of business reforms. We are talking of different strategies by now to increase business. We are talking of labor and vendor management. I'm actually fortunate enough that in this room, I have visionaries like Mr. Thokral, Mr. Rupal, Mr. Peshawari sitting here who think of going beyond the comfort zones and establishing certain parameters in our industry. We are talking of refurbishing business models. We actually heard, I don't know, because I was also here in this room, then I just popped out to listen to Jana sir, and he was talking of certain softwares in the sewing machine area where you could actually measure the seams and everything through putting certain devices on the sewing machines with the software helps. So we're talking of moving out of the comfort zones, right? Part 2, the new skills. That's what we are looking at, right? Merchants, like rightfully I started off by saying, are the face of the company. Can anybody guess what's the background of the slide there? What's that design, Sean? It's any design? I love that. Who said beads? Somebody said beads? Breathe. It is, I can't say it rhymes. It's a gene diagram basically, which is supposed to be, all right, I don't have toffees, but it's a gene diagram which is standard yet different for every individual, okay? And why I have put it behind the SOP definition, like we say, like the definition, which is the standard operating procedure, is that each factory might have certain standards, but they also are different to each setup. Right? They are called standard operating procedures, but they will be different for each factory again. By SOPs, we are not trying to complicate things, right? We are trying to simplify things. Does that sound useful? What we are trying to do is, if your buyers are giving you TNAs, your buying office is giving you one TNA, the factory is following another TNA, we are trying to make one out of it, probably give you one single format or an MIS, which is useful. You can delete and add columns, certain basic ground rules. Because see, we are all human beings. I mean, I belong to the fraternity. I've been a merchant for a long, long time. Now what happens is, yes, I have a smartphone, I have my Outlook reminders and everything, but still when somebody asks me, Pooja, open that mail where the approval was received, that's it. That mail I will not receive that. I'll spend about 5-6 minutes. And by now we have started talking about lean merchandising also. I mean, lean production, yes. And as rightfully was said by Mr. Peshawari in the beginning, you know, the lead time for merchandising now needs to be shortened, right? So with SOPs, we are looking at simplification of things, we are looking at transformations, we are looking at set procedures, because reliability counts. We heard some of my eminent colleagues speak yesterday. Reliability and the trust with the buyers still makes a huge impact. A very old saying, stitch in time saves 9, and that's what SOPs do. They are actually sort of pre-alerts, okay? Further down the presentation, when I actually take you through a case studies where I have been involved with SOP formulation in about 4 to 5 odd Delhi NCR factories, I've kind of, you know, amalgamated the information here. We have a standard way of dealing with clients, right? We can have standard flow charts, right? A lab dip will either get approved or get rejected. So there is a yes or no in a flow chart. The next action can be preempted. I mean, you'll obviously send it for a redip, and it will have an effect on the time and action calendar. So these are, I mean, we are not doing something which is out of the world. Tony ji is here, and he always, you know, gives me a very good example. Sir, if I can quote you, he talked about Starbucks, and he said they have so many number of coffees, and the way, if you've been to Starbucks, it is delivered, is a standard, right? We are also dealing with garments, with stitched garments. Yes, we have X number of combination of fabrics, we have X number of styles, but I mean, it's nothing that cannot be standardized. That's what we are talking of. Benefits, I'm not going to read through all this, of course, because I want to show you the case study and then show you the benefits there also. It promotes quality, it's minimizing the variations. We are actually looking at improving efficiencies, which was both quality, when it is being said, the correctness of a merchandiser, you know, and the promptness of a merchandiser. So you're preempting and you're actually very importantly, clarifying roles and responsibility at each level, which I feel is such a duplication when you look at things. There are so many activities. I think it was one of the annual functions at OGTC when we were talking of a percentage, a certain percentage. When a junior merchant was doing a certain task, the same task was being repeated by the senior merchant, the same task was being repeated by the MM. And you know, there was a certain set percentage, the tasks were being repeated. I don't know why. Probably we are saying that my MM can get this approval from the buying office and I cannot. Why? Why can't I do that? So, you know, we're looking at certain RFT procedures. We're saying right first time. And when I was actually making this PowerPoint presentation, I thought, let me have, for curiosity's sake, you know, let me have a look at any other industry apart from automobiles. We keep on referring to automobiles. And I found a very nice, interesting case study of a flower auction that happens in Netherlands, Holland, and we'll show you a short video on it to emphasize how well it is managed. Don't think so, it needs a lot of volume, no?
The flower auction in Algiers is the largest flower auction in the world. Every day the auction determines the market price of flowers and plants all over the world. 90 million flowers and 2 million plants are bought and sold here daily.
You know, they have this system of cool chain management. This auction takes at 6 a.m. in the morning, early morning, 6 a.m. the auction starts, and flowers are packed in boxes. They generate heat, and for the flowers to be maintained at a certain quality, there is a certain temperature that needs to be maintained, and that is a sort of SOP that needs to be maintained at every link of the supply chain, right? The same temperature should be maintained, right? So it's a big task. The growers need to deliver the flowers. Then the couriers, the aeroplane, and they have huge refrigerated plants. So come to think of it, I mean, it's a huge task, billions of pieces. If you go onto YouTube, this is called the Alzmir flower auction. It is a huge case study covered under management institutes. And if you read about it, it is in such in-depth that you will understand how each process is carried on, how each person ensures the right quality. Each stem is measured, each flower is looked upon. They see the flowers on 2 screens and they understand the quality. They are supposed to bid online, they press the buttons, etc., etc. My question is, if we talk of SOP and the apparel industry, are we doing things which are closer to this? Are we having certain standard operating procedures which are closer to this? Do we have SOPs in place that will make our life so systematic, so organized, and so simple? Are you aware of any SOPs being followed in your factories?
It's firefighting.
Thank you, Varun. Okay, so that's exactly what we don't want to do. Just going back to where I started from, the merchants, this is the human factor, the resistance to change. We are all humans. I like the way I get up every day. I have my comfort zones. Why I want to bring this into is, if I said I was a consultant and I want to bring in certain MIS formats and certain SOP procedures, SOP contains of job descriptions, of KPIs, of telling you what is to be done every day, right, I can just hand over those formats to you. What happens next? There are brilliant softwares available all around the world. Who will follow them? We have to follow them, right? And human nature is ingrained with resistance to change, right? My biggest difficulty is that I just don't want to move around. I did, you saw. So I'm setting an example. I was not standing at the podium. So the thing is that merchants, if they are intended to do certain things, they end up not doing that. Actually, if you look at the level of MMs or DMMs with no, I'm not pointing out at any specific factory or person here, but we end up doing multitasking, activities which should not be done at all, probably which can be delegated. We are supposed to be the coordinators, we are supposed to be the know-it-alls. I had days on when I would go back home and if I would ask myself, Pooja, what did you attain today? Pooja, what did you gain today? And if I would ask quantifiably, I was like, I don't know. I was probably chasing a lot of people. I was probably trying to push my vendors to do certain things, get costings, get the pattern markers, whatever. But what did I do today? I'm not too sure. So, again, we have to focus on solutions, right? We have to preempt things and provide the buyers with solutions, not with problems. Everybody can ask for extensions. And we have to make ourselves strong enough with these procedures so that we actually come back strong and evolve ourselves. Okay? I have also realized over all these years of now being with the industry and training, I feel certain leagues, we are scared of the client. We are just ready to say yes, sir. We're ready to follow the buyer. Probably because we don't know our product. What is it? We are not getting off our chair. We are not trying to follow the technical specifications. If somebody is asking what is the fabric used, or we just have to run down to the other department and kind of understand what is happening. So that's another thing. Does that sound familiar? Ownership. Another very, very important element. This was not my part. The fabric team had to actually chase it. See, fortunately, unfortunately, again, being at the risk of being repetitive, we are the birth givers to the order. We need to actually know everything about it. So, I mean, you might say, unlike production, because I deal with both the sectors by now, so merchandising is subjective, unlike manufacturing. With each order, it's different, etc., etc. Even more reason to get in the operating procedures, the standardization into place. Like I said, we have about 60 to 70 days. That's all that we have. So we need to understand how we can make the most of it and actually give the file that is intended for the production well in time. Okay? We don't have to do things which are not required at our level. I see a lot of divisional heads getting into checking of samples, getting into TNA, getting into lab dep approvals. I fail to understand. That's, sorry to say, not your job. That's a job which is intended to be down the line. Right? There should be a clear demarcation of work that has to be done at every level. I'll now actually come to the main part of the presentation, where I've compiled certain information from the clients that I've been working with, the SOPs. We have done the case study in 3 phases. This is how we had designed it. Phase 1 was the diagnostic phase, which was again to understand, because like I said, every factory is very different. The way the hierarchy structure is done, the way the job responsibilities are done, and the way they deal with the other departments, all that needs to be understood. And with a fresh eye, that's the work of a consultant. Phase 2 was actually the actual formation, when the SOPs are getting rolled out. We are in one of the factories right now and doing this. And phase 3 would be the audit. This is primarily for us to ensure, parity between what we had diagnosed and then what we had rolled out. If there is, now consensus and we have moved on, if what we had intended to roll out and train people on has been covered. Just getting into more details now with the diagnosis phase. Diagnosis was based on a lot of assessments. Now, assessments were also further broken down into profile and buyer related, merchandising knowledge, textile knowledge, which is required at certain levels. So there were different questions for different levels. Somebody's put on the lights. Can I have the lights off, please? Because the presentation is in a light color. Okay. We also devised certain questionnaires and surveys. Okay, it's all right. So we had internal team interactions, like I said, with other departments which are closely associated with the merchandising, which could be sampling, which could be the design team, which could be also the pre-production planning team, which could be the IE team, to understand where procedures are lacking, where systems are lacking. Certain findings, again, these are for reference only. It's not a data that is, in actuality, but it's a similar data. So we found out about client knowledge. It's surprising to know. I always say this. It's a quote that I say, that there can be theoretical knowledge that we gain from our colleges. Then there is certain experiential knowledge. And then there are certain things that you actually kind of be there and then gain out of it, right? If you talk of the market knowledge, the clients, I was surprised to know, I'll ask you, peculiarity of your client, the country that you're exporting to. Do you know the various tastes, the categories, the age group that you're catering to, their competitors on the high street? Well, 89% didn't know about it. I talked about setting priorities throughout a day. 67 could not respond. 67% of the people whom I had interviewed, or through certain questionnaires. Time management. We had given a lot of ratings and scales to how you manage your time. And then again, we saw that about 33% could not respond. And these were at different levels, different questionnaires at different levels, right? So now, again, like time management was further subdivided into communication. What are you doing? Are you communicating? How much time are you spending in supervision of your subordinates, internal department, vendor management, etc., etc. We then went on to also understand the training needs. Why this was important? Like I mentioned, I just cannot go and hand over formats to a factory. I believe that will not work. I believe any format needs to be understood in view of what the factory is doing, how they are functioning, and also understand what the merchants are capable of in that particular setup. It is very easy to say that you don't have the required set of skills in your factory. I can do that. I can do an assessment and I can just say that, well, right, 90% of your merchants are failing. So what's new in it? I mean, there's nothing new. But what is more challenging is how we upgrade the same skill set and bring them up to the par, because everybody, I believe, has a certain skill set, and that's why we are all sitting here and understanding this, right? So we actually analyzed the training needs of the merchandising section, and then we came out with modules. An example of a module, I called it transformational, was like from the questionnaires I analyzed, time management was required for about like a 24%, if you can see here, right? From a written assessment, I showed you a previous slide, 33% could not respond. Then I saw that, okay, problem solving during production was an issue. I made this module which covers time management, theoretical knowledge on time management, relevant MIS formats with it, certain problem solving techniques. I'll show you a few slides that we're doing with them. It was over 14 to 16 hours of training with the relevant MIS formats. Now the challenge with formats is that you don't want to overload the factory with formats. You have to see what is present in their existing structure. Everybody has ERP by now. So what is the information that they are getting and the ease of getting it and how they are using it. So, that compilation was required, which we started in phase 2. Again, talking of variations, this is Coca-Cola, Coke, so many variations, and each factory is different. For me, all factories were different. Just showing you a generic SOP with color codes. So if we go back, these are all color codes. So if it's received from a buyer or outside agency, so it's brown in color, right? These are the small little things that go with the flow, the process. So if it's acceptance of first prototype, either it gets yes, it goes into an order booking. Like I said, it's always a yes or no. Don't get intimidated with this. It's just two parts. It's a product development part and production merchandising. And all that this says is it's a process flow. The whole merchandising thing is a process flow. So if I know there is a process, I can actually standardize the process. That's all that I'm trying to say. Okay, we can have a standard operating procedure to the process flow. We started making more, interactive formats, like PP formats, pre-production, internal pre-production formats. We also are looking into the hierarchies. This was the hierarchy that was presented to us when we went the current organizational structure. So certain people reporting into the director, directly, and then the designers. We kind of changed it and made it a little more simple, having introduced the ownership modules and having people report and take more onus of the juniors. So this looks slightly more neater if you'll observe. This was more flat. And we, like I said in the beginning, the most important thing was to define the job purpose. What is the purpose of your job? Yes, we are all merchants, we are catering to the buyer, but what is the purpose of your job at your current level? So if you're a junior merchant, there's a certain job purpose. If you're an MM, you can't have the same job purpose. Your job responsibility will automatically align with the job purpose here, right? So you'll have job responsibilities. Defining this might seem theoretical. However, when we get down to the KPIs, this is the actual SOP rollout, phase 2. So if we are actually now talking of KPIs, we are actually getting a lot of objectivity into merchandising. Orders handled per unit time. If we are talking of sampling to order conversion strike rate, were you measuring this? If not, we are starting to do it now. What was the inquiry response time? So first of all, we'll actually set an inquiry response time. Okay, that if an inquiry comes, a costing inquiry comes, 24 to 48 hours. How many were, given a response to within that time? How many were not? So there's a percentage, and this is how you can actually evaluate the merchants at any level. And then again, sample delivery percentage, sample rejection rate. What this is leading to is RFT that I talked about. We are intending to a right first time procedure. Okay. So what we are trying to do is, if you've attained a 5%, it's okay, 10%, it's okay. At least we have started measuring all this, right? A few examples that I wanted to share with you that we were doing with the training bit. We started with a very interesting thing of saying know your buyer. We started talking of experience economy, and when we said that buyers now are believing in the experience more than anything else. I've actually Tony ji put Starbucks for you. So you're not going to Starbucks, to have the coffee, but it's actually about the experience. So if you're showing samples, right, and I'm glad we've had John's lesson before mine, and you're selling an experience, right? The coffee might be worth 20 rupees, but you're buying it for 200 rupees. It is the experience. You're selling a sample or you're selling a story. There's a mood board behind it. There's a lot of thought that goes behind all this. A lot of retail practitioners look into the whole stories that go into a store. There's a whole planning which goes on the four walls. Again, talking of ownership, well, I don't need to read it out. You have to give enough responsibility to your people and enough authority to execute it. With systems, it's much easier. If you know the systems are in place, it won't be messed around. We also did a very interesting assignment, one of my clients, the case study that I'm discussing, we wanted to kind of upgrade the MMs to a level where they start marketing. And we started, actually, we had a one-off session of training where we said that what is the mission aligned with the vision that you have. Now you can have one vision, which is, let's say this is as an example, to be amongst the top 3 volume handling managers in the company by a certain 2 to 3 years. What will be the mission statements with this? Okay, so to handle, now we are quantifying things. My ERPs were telling me what percentage of shipment I've done last year, this year, blah, blah, blah. We actually segregated by saying, okay, what was the volume of blouses that you did, pants that you did, what is the opportunity in the next category, okay, are you actually aiming at newer clients, which region, okay, now India is actually catering to a lot more new regions, okay, are you looking at late claims, etc. We started by talking of SWOT analysis, right, I need to understand as a company, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what are my threats, what are my opportunities. Okay, at a MM level, if I understand that, my strategy for marketing is much more clearer. I take the liberty of quoting this, that we saw a phenomenal change. We did like a before and after presentation here, where we asked the MMs to present a strategy in the beginning, and then they made a strategy after they were trained. There was a remarkable difference. And the best part was everybody got to know their buyers more closely. We introduced certain tools, A3 tools, which are dependent on the PDCA cycle. We said, okay, anything that needs to be discussed in a company should not be verbally. A lot of us in the export trade believe that I have said this, okay, my lead times are tight, my fabric is getting late, please sort it out, right? A lot of verbal communication goes, a lot of comfort factor is there. I don't want that. We want to actually preempt problems, put it on paper. So we made certain tools. It's the A3 tool actually. The result orientations will, sorry, I think I missed the phase 3. Okay, the result orientations will be, of course, we'll take a written exam. I think the owners like me taking this written exam. When there is a certain percentage that needs to be cleared to get a pass status. And phase 3 is an exam for me, where I actually kind of understand. I see a lot of smiling faces with people whom I'm going to take an exam with. Right. This is my exam, guys, so be comfortable. I also have an exam where we try and understand, okay, we were the ones who said this is the diagnosis of the company, this is what we have rolled out, and now let's have an audit. Are the systems better? Because everything was quantified. Everything, I've just shown you a very brief snapshot. It was all quantified, all very, not subjective. The report was presented to the management, and we'll do the audit after a month of that implementation so that it doesn't fall flat. That's the most important thing. You don't want things falling flat. And of course, if there is a need of retraining, any gaps thereof will be covered. Just summarizing with the impressive benefits of SOP. I like that now evaluations can be done. The performance evaluations can be done. We know, of course, shipments on time, off time, these are being recorded. See, I've had this good opportunity of working as an exporter at one time, as a buying agent at one time, and then when I had gone to do my master's, I was actually working with a buyer. They have all these big matrices and grids, where they say which vendor is good and which is not. You know how they do it? They have certain parameters saying that, okay, XYZ delivered so much on time, cost benefit analysis, etc., etc. So we can do that, right? Which buyer we have had shipments on time, what were the approvals on time. We intended to do our file handover 3 days before the PCD. How many times were we able to achieve it? Not only stopping at that, right? But if there was a failure, why did that failure happen? Go back to the A3 tool, do a root cause analysis so that the failure does not occur the next time. We have to actually evolve ourselves. Again, I'm repeating the same things. We are the face of the company. If we can actually measure that 95% of the times my file handover is being correct, I can guide the production team on what's right and what's wrong. I can tell them, right now I am, in this line. What is going wrong? Why is the shipment getting delayed? Then let's understand that, right? So again, that was performance evaluation. Ownership and responsibility, we are removing the subjectivity. We are talking of better response time. We are talking of more on-time shipment. We are not saying we are just not passing the buck on. It's not my game because we have more time. There are certain set rules by now which we are following, and problems are anticipated. Like actually, Param had just mentioned, we are not firefighting now. We are anticipating those problems. And last but not the least, the biggest dilemma that our industry faces is of the labor turnover, is of the turnover that we face with the merchants. Any newcomer coming in, we have a small black book for you now, right? Like that flower show that I showed you, and it's one of my favorite quotes that I say, n number of managers can change in a banking sector, but the way you bank and withdraw your money or deposit your money doesn't get affected. It's all about SOPs. So if a newcomer is coming and you just kind of give him or her a file and say that this is your order, and he's like, wow, where am I, where have I landed? It won't happen because you have a certain set of SOPs and you have a little black book saying that, okay, go through this. This is your buyer. This is what the business is all about. These are the procedures. These are the formats that the company uses. He won't be lost. Again, at the risk of being repetitive, we do not intend on complicating things. It might sound big, but that is why the training sessions and the modules are coming, which are very carefully derived out of a lot of questionnaires, a lot of surveys, and we actually intend on simplification of things. So, do I have time for a 3-minute video? Yeah, I have time? All right, okay. So, I think this is, David, with respect to you, I'm showing a video because David is going to be showing us what is happening in 2025.
Up to you.
And so again, something related to our industry where we are going.
Yeah, you said no duplicacy. Just now you were saying no duplicacy.
No duplicacy. I'm giving him a path.
Okay. I hope you're not
No,
duplicating this.
not at all. He has the risk. He's following me. Well, thank you. And just a little note here, little last but not the least, if you've enjoyed the presentation and the visual effects, it's with my colleague here, Veronica, who's yeah, but it is a beautiful presentation for me, and it has been done by Veronica from my team. So that's it. Thank you very much.